Hello everyone, welcome to commerce classes. Now in our last class we have studied liquidation of the companies, the meaning and the mode of liquidation, and appointment of company liquidator. So today we will be studying the role of the liquidator and some important concepts relating to liquidation. Now when we talk about the liquidator is a person who has been appointed by the tribunal or by the company to work for the liquidation proceedings. So what do you think will be his role? Like if you are appointed to proceed with the liquidation of a company, what exactly do you think is your role? What exactly you will be doing therein? Now when a company is liquidated, obviously it implies that you are to dispose of all the assets, right? So you are to sell off the assets to the extent possible, means you will be collecting debtors, you will be collecting money from bill receivables, you will be disposing of current assets, investments, fixed assets, right? Now in case of companies, there is one more thing relevant, that the companies have shareholders. Like the capital of the company is divided into shares. So it may happen that some of the shareholders haven't paid the call money. So there are calls in arrear. So you will be collecting that calls in arrear also. So you will try to collect money from the relevant sources. And then you will be utilizing that money to pay off the liabilities. And we all know that in the order of payment, we first pay secured liabilities, then comes unsecured liabilities, and then you have the payment of the owners. Owners in this case are shareholders or members, who are also referred as contributories, right? So the basic role of the liquidator is to collect money on account of disposal of the assets and utilize the money to pay off the liabilities. Once this is settled, then they are to submit a final statement of accounts, like we have this liquidator's final statement. So after completing their work, their role, they are to make this statement and submit it to the tribunal or to the company, right? So let us see the roles that we have just discussed. The role of company's liquidator is to convene the meeting for the winding up of the company. So he is to convene all the meetings of winding up committee, and his role is to monitor liquidation proceedings. And the areas are taking over assets. So once a liquidator is appointed, as I told you, that the company is to close all its business and all the employees are also terminated, unless and until it is necessary to continue with the business to realize the assets fruitfully. Otherwise, the company's business stands closed. So the liquidator takes control of all the assets, then he examines the present state of affairs. He takes steps to recover the property, cash and other benefits. He reviews the auditor's report and accounts. He sells all the assets. So he is to take over control of these matters. He will monitor these activities. So once the assets have been sold off, now he will finalize the list of liabilities and contributories. Contributories are the shareholder members. So he will finalize the list of all the liabilities. Then comes the compromise, abandonment or settlement of the claims. That is, he will meet or hold meetings with the liability holders to compromise regarding the payments, and in the process certain contingent liabilities may be settled, some may be abandoned. So the step is to compromise, abandonment or settlement of the claims. If there is a requirement, the payment of dividend will also happen, and any other function as directed by the tribunal. And finally, final statement of accounts is to be prepared. So this is the role. Now when we look at this role, what we can basically see, that the financial matters which will come under his statement of accounts, that he is to prepare at the end. He is to file final statement of accounts at the end. So the financial matters which are relevant in his role are realizing cash from various sources. Now what are the sources? debtors, bill receivables, sale proceeds of assets, then surplus from the assets held as security. Like in case of secured creditors, we use the term creditors, but the term creditor here implies any kind of liabilities. That may be loan, that may be debentures, so all type of liability. So if any asset is given as a security to the secured liability holders, then the surplus will be collected, recovering calls in arrears, and then from the contributories, that is from the shareholders or members in respect of the calls already made or guarantees given by the persons. So he will be recovering cash from these sources. Now once you collect cash, you are to utilize that cash to pay off the liabilities. So what is the order of payment? Now order of payment is already known to us. Number one, secured liabilities. Now in case of secured liabilities in companies, we have two type of securities. One is the assets given with a specific charge, like you issue debentures against a specific security of say land and building. It means this asset is under a specific charge, a specific security is there, right? So when the company is to be liquidated, then land and building will be sold and its money will be first utilized to pay off the debenture holders. So this is specific security. Second is floating charge. Floating charge is when a liability is secured with a charge over all assets. That is, this liability will be settled before payment of the remaining liabilities. So when we go for the payment of liabilities, the very first thing which is there in priority list, that is in the order of payment, is secured liabilities, to the extent of course, realizations from security. So if you have taken a bank loan on the security of plant, say 5 lakh rupees. So if plant fetches you 5 lakh or more, you can pay it in full. But if plant fetches you something lesser, it will imply you cannot pay full liability out of this. Suppose plant is sold for 4 lakh. So 4 lakh will be paid off, and remaining 1 lakh of your secured liability will now be coming or ranking with the unsecured liabilities. But in case your plant is sold for say 5,50,000, you can pay off the liability in full 5 lakh, you are still left with a surplus of 50,000. So the liquidator's work is to see the payment of the secured creditors out of the secured assets. So either there will be a case of surplus coming from, or it will be the remaining liability which will be ranked with the unsecured. Now after the secured liabilities, the cost of liquidation, all the legal charges, liquidator's remuneration, it has a priority over everything else. Then we have some preferential payments. So in case of companies, there are some things which we need to take care of. There are some preferential payments which have a priority over floating charge or floating charge liabilities. Right? Secured liabilities which have a security, a complete security against some specific asset, they are first in the list, then the cost of liquidation, and then you have preferential payments. Basically, preferential payments, we'll discuss this in detail. Preferential payments are the payments regarding the taxes, any kind of taxes payable to the government. That may be in form of cess or excise duty or any other form of tax. Secondly, it includes any form of payment to the employees, like in form regarding their salary, regarding their leave salary, regarding their pension benefits, regarding the compensation under Workmen's Compensation Act. So any kind of payment due, but there are certain limitations, right? So we'll take up this detail. So certain preferential payments are to be done. Only after that the payment will be made to those liabilities which are having a floating charge on all assets. That means they have security of all the assets. So they will be paid before unsecured liabilities. So once this is done, then the payment is made to the secured liabilities and the part of secured creditors or liabilities not covered here. So herein secured liabilities have been paid out of the secured asset, but if something is not covered here, it will now fall with the unsecured creditors. Once the payment is made to all external liabilities, then comes the payment of the contributories or members. So then payment will be made to preference shareholders first because they have a preferential right, after that to the equity shareholders. So in case your preference shareholders are participating, then the paid up capital will be given to the preference shareholders, then to the equity shareholders, and if any surplus is left, it will be split between preference and equity shareholders as per the participation rules. And if the shares are non-participating, then after payment of the payment to preference shareholders, everything left will belong to equity shareholders. So once you pay off this, you file the final statement. Now when we talk about contributories, we need to remember a few things regarding the contributories, like who are the contributories. Like I'm time and again saying, contributories are the shareholders or the members of the company. However, as per law, the contributories are listed in two categories. Of course, they are shareholders and members, but they are not only the present shareholders and members, but it also includes past shareholders or members. That means the persons who were shareholders or members in the past, but there is a time limit. So list of contributories which the liquidator is to settle includes two lists, A list and B list. A list it is the list of the shareholders or members who are presently shareholders. So it is the list of present shareholders and members. Whereas B list includes the shareholders or members who cease to become shareholder or member at any time during the previous year, just before the commencement of liquidation proceedings. So the particular time when you started with the liquidation proceedings, if someone was the shareholder or member within a time span of 1 year from that date, then the person will be included in B list. So if you have applied for, say, liquidation on let us say on 1st September 2019, then take 1 year prior to this. That means any person who ceases to be the member within 1 year prior to this, that is the person who ceases to be a member from 1st September 2018 to 19, they will be included in B list, and those who are currently the members or shareholders, they will be included in the A list. So A list is of the existing members and B list is of the previous members or shareholders who sold their shares within 1 year from the start of the liquidation proceedings, which also implies that any person who has sold his shares or who ceases to be the member of the company, shareholder of the company, at any time 1 year before the commencement, then they are not to be included in the list of contributories. So if somebody was a shareholder, say in 2017, and he sold his shares at any time before this 1 year period, that is before 1st September 2018. So he ceases to be the member at any time 1 year prior to the date of start of liquidation, then they are not to be considered for contributories. So contributories can only be present members or those who were members in the last year, right? Now the B list members, B list contributories can be called up to pay the amount only if the company has already called up amount from A list contributories. That means if all the existing shareholders have been asked to pay the amount and they have paid the relevant amounts and still there is a deficiency, then a company can call B list contributories to contribute towards company's assets. Secondly, they cannot be called up for the payment of any liability which was incurred after they sold off their shares, after they ceased to be the members. Just consider it, like I have taken this 1st September 2019 as the date of commencement of liquidation. So anyone who was member from 1st September 2018 to 1st September 2019, they will come in B list. So suppose a person sold his shares in January 2019. Okay, so he was there as a member within the last 1 year. He sold his shares on January 2019. So he can be called up to pay for any kind of liability which was incurred during his time as a shareholder, but he cannot be called upon to pay the amount for the liabilities which are incurred after the date he ceases to be a member. So if company has taken any loan, say after January 2019, when he had already sold his shares, so company took loan in say March, and company now needs money to pay off that loan, then this person cannot be called. So we must remember when they can be called. B list members can be called only when company has called up entire amount from A list members and nothing is now recoverable from A list members. Secondly, they can be called up to pay for those liabilities which were incurred during the time when they were the members and not afterwards, right? Now, what will be the liability of a contributory? Now, we know that there are two types of companies. Companies limited by shares. In case of companies limited by shares, shareholders' liability is limited to the issue price of the share, to the value, face value of the shares. So, the company can only ask them to pay uncalled money, or if any calls in arrear are there, so they can be asked to pay off that amount, which also implies that a shareholder or member of fully paid shares will not be having any liability in such cases because they are limited by the share. And in case of companies limited by the guarantee, then contributories can be asked to pay the amount up to the amount guaranteed by them. So if the guarantee was for say 10,000 rupees, so they can be asked to pay maximum guaranteed amount 10,000 rupees. Now, the person who is a contributory, he may be having some amount recoverable from the company also. Maybe he is a vendor of the stocks to the company, so he is to collect some money from the company also. But they cannot cross these two things. They cannot cancel their debt due against their liability as a contributory, right? So if the company is asking Mr. A to pay off calls in arrear of 10,000 rupees, and he is also having say amount of 20,000 recoverable from company for some transaction, he cannot set off the two amounts. His liability as a contributory is separate and his recoverable amount in some other capacity is separate, and his claim will be at par with other creditors. So the way the company is handling other creditors, other liability holders, in the same manner his claim of 20,000 will be settled. He cannot cancel his liability against the debt. Another thing is that the contributories are not only there for making contributions as per the liability, but they also have the right to recover the money already paid from the company. So when the company has paid off all the external liabilities and company is left with the surplus, that will be used to pay off the contributories, their paid up capital, and if something is still left, it is used to pay the balance to equity shareholders, right? So these are the contributories that we need to remember. So you can prepare a short note on the contributories, that who are the participants or who can be included in A list and B list, what are their liabilities, and can we set off their own debts against the liabilities or not, right? So these are all the theoretical matters. In practical, what we need to know is that they will recover cash from various sources, then they will utilize cash to pay off the liabilities in this order. Now, some of these things in this order are known to us, already known to us, because we have done dissolution of partnership firms. We know that secured liabilities are paid first, but now we have come across a new term, liabilities having floating charge. Okay, so security is of two types, specific security and a floating charge. So we have specific security first, then we have cost of liquidation, preferential payments, which I told you that certain types of taxes and some payments to employees and certain other costs under some sections of the company. Then the payment to unsecured liabilities. So this way you have covered all the external liabilities, and then the payment will be made to the contributories or members for their share capital. So what we need to know is what is preferential payment, and there are quite a few things which we need to understand here. Within these points, certain things are needed to be taken care of. Like herein we have some adjustments needed to be done. Here also, before the secured loans or liabilities are paid, we have some clause relevant here. So we need to study those provisions also, right? So our next provision that we are to study is number 1, preferential payments. Like we said here that before we make payment to the liability holders having floating charge on assets, preferential payments are to be made. So what are preferential payments? So to outline these preferential payments include 2 specific payments. One is all kind of revenues and taxes, but it is within 12 months from the start of winding up. So if any taxes are to be paid for a period falling before that 12 months period, then it is not a preferential payment. It will be a normal payment. It will rank with the unsecured liabilities. Are you understanding? So if the company is to be wound up, say company is to be liquidated, say it has filed for liquidation, it is liquidated on say 31st March 2020. Okay, so any kind of taxes or cess etc. payable within 12 months from this date, that is from 1st April 2019 to 31st March 2020. So for any taxes payable during this period, that will be a preferential payment. But if suppose there was some tax liability pending for the year 2018-19, now this tax liability will not be covered under preferential payment because its limit is 1 year. So this will be a normal payment along with creditors, bills payable, or maybe any other liability. Another thing that is relevant here is any expenses pending for any kind of investigation under 2 Section 13 and 2 Section 216 of the Companies Act. Basically, under these sections, the central government or the respective authorities may be carrying out some kind of inquiries to look at the affairs of the company. That is, if board is of the opinion that company is doing fraudulent activities or company's affairs are being managed under fraudulent manner, so they can proceed with the investigations under section 213. So if any kind of expenses are there, so regarding these investigations, so they are also preferential payments. Under section 216 also some kind of investigation might be carried out by the relevant authorities if they find or they have sufficient reason carrying out its activities for the benefit of some other person. So the company is carrying out the activities in the name of some other person. So to know who are the real beneficiaries in the company, right? Like ghost companies. So they want to know the real beneficiaries, real members of the company. So there might be some inquiries, some investigations pending. So any expenses relating to these investigations, they are also preferential payments. Then certain payments are preferential for employees. Now, when we talk about the employees, what type of payments are there? Their wages and salary, but the time limit is 4 months. Okay, only for 4 months within 12 years period. Then you may have some holiday remuneration. You may have some payment in employees' state insurance schemes. You may have payment in respect of compensation under Workmen's Compensation Act, or you may have payments due under employees' welfare schemes. So these are 5 payments to be made to employees. So these are preferential payments for employees, plus taxes payable to government, plus any expenses for the inquiries or investigations happening. So there is a time limit. So these are preferential payments. So if you see, you are given the wages are not paid for the last 6 months, then 4 months wages will be preferential, but remaining 2 months wages will be ordinary liabilities. So when we are writing the liabilities in the preference order, then we are to write these preferential payments as per the time limit. Okay, so time limit is there for the government taxes, 12 months time. Time limit is for wages, we can only take 4 months wages. And time limit is for the payments due in respect of employees state insurance compensation, so 12 months. So these are the preferential payments. So after paying secured liabilities with the specific charge on the assets, but before paying liabilities with floating charge, the preferential payments have to be made. So remember here, so we'll have to see this again and again. Secured creditors, then cost of liquidation, then these preferential payments. These 7 payments are to be included here. After payment of these, then you will pay to the secured liabilities having floating charge and then unsecured liabilities. So this is the order of the payment. So herein the preferential payments include these payments. Now there are 2 more things which we need to take care of in this. Number 1 is there is a pari passu clause. So there is a pari passu clause which we need to take care of before making payment to secured creditors. So this clause overrides the secured creditors also, and its effect goes even before preferential payments. So because of this clause, there might be 2 effects going, one before preferential payment, which is called overriding payment, and one before the secured creditors payments. So for the time being, do remember the payment order, which at present is this. Then the modification as per pari passu clause will be studied next time. Thank you.